Hello, this is Chek. Welcome back to my video blogs. Today I'm going to do a little segment on are you ready for a good solid workout? Many people today, as I'm sure most of you are aware, are getting heavy into things like CrossFit and the PX90 craze, and basically functional exercise craze is on. So what I'd like to do is just give you some suggestions that will minimize your likelihood of getting hurt doing functional exercise, which is largely complex exercise. Complex exercises are exercises that use multiple joints. So a biceps curl would not be a complex exercise, but a cable row or a kettlebell lift would be considered a complex exercise. Complex exercises use more neurological energy and often require a reduced base of support. So for example, if you're doing a squat with a barbell, that's a complex exercise, but if you try to do a squat on one leg, even with a dumbbell, you've cut your base of support down significantly, so the complexity of the exercise goes up. The more complex the exercise and the smaller the base of support, or the more challenged your balance is, the more neurologically demanding any exercise is, and the more likelihood of injury if you're not ready for that type of training. So years ago, about 25 years ago actually, when I was rehabilitating Danny Way from an injured spinal cord, I noticed that as we progressed in Danny's rehab and his exercises got more and more complex, which were very complex being a professional skateboard star, that sometimes he would come back to training with me and he was unable to do very simple exercises that the last session he could do very, very well. So as I shared my blog today on paulcheksblog.com, I began questioning Danny about what was he doing between sessions, and I found out that sometimes maybe he was out partying or drinking with friends or having fun, or sometimes he had been doing more skateboard work on his own or doing different exercises. And then I was able to identify that the more fatigued he was by not resting effectively or taxing other biological systems, such as blood sugar handling with alcohol, not getting enough sleep, etc., that the worse he performed in the gym with exercises that he could normally do well. My first tip was that by the time I noticed this, he was able to not only stand on a Swiss ball, but he could jump ball to ball and do 360s in the air, which is pretty amazing. And that was when he was in rehab. Today he can do even crazier stuff, as I'm sure you've seen if you watch Danny Way at all. So what happened was I began to notice that on the days he was tired, he could barely kneel on a Swiss ball, and that he would fall off the ball quite quickly and get frustrated because he himself knew that he should be able to do these exercises. So I developed what I will now call the Danny Way test, which is a simple test of kneeling on a Swiss ball and timing yourself. I found that if Danny and all other athletes, I've tested it thousands of times since, could kneel on the Swiss ball comfortably for 30 seconds at least without falling off, that they were ready for a complex training program. And I could leave the exercises, sets, repetitions, loads, and variables in place that I had planned. If the person's challenged to stay on the ball, they stay on it, but they're challenged, it usually means there's going to need to be a reduction in complexity. What you often find, though, is when an athlete's tired, even famous athletes and very, very elite athletes, if they're tired or they're stressed, they often fall off the ball 2 or 3 times in as little as 30 seconds. And again, even when they can jump ball to ball on other days. So what I'm sharing with you in a nutshell is if somebody shows their inability to kneel on that ball effectively for 30 seconds, and they go try to do things like jumping ball to ball or complex kettlebell lifts and mixing complex exercises as is common in systems like CrossFit, that the likelihood of injury goes up because it shows, the test shows that the nervous system is fatigued and has not recovered yet. It also indicates that other systems that support the nervous systems and muscular systems may be under stress and have not, now there's not enough energy available to run the nervous system. For example, if you eat a big meal late at night, so much of your energy can be trapped in the digestive process that when you go to exercise, the body has a hard time liberating the amount of energy you need in order to do the exercise. So my holistic lifestyle coaching program looks into all these other factors. Today what I'd like to do is bring in my instructor Angie Lustrick, who teaches holistic lifestyle coaching for the Chek Institute and who I train. And Angie and I did quite a good little complex workout yesterday where we mixed heavy deadlifting with kettlebell cleans and Swiss ball push jacks coupled in circuits, which can be quite taxing. So an example of how I would use this is before I train Angie today, I would ask Angie to go ahead and kneel on the ball, and as soon as she gets on the ball, once she's kneeling on the ball, I'll start my stopwatch. So go ahead. Okay. Now that she's got feet off ground, she's on the ball, I just watch to see how well she does kneeling on the ball. Now you can see she's not having a very hard time kneeling on that ball at all. Oftentimes what you'll see if people are tired, you can mimic this. They'll start wandering all over the place and it will look like they're barely able to stand on the ball or kneel on the ball. And many times, as I said earlier, they will fall off the ball. I've seen people fall off the ball 4 times in 30 seconds. They get on, fall off, get on, fall off, get on, fall off. And these are people that can usually do very advanced exercises. So we're over 30 seconds now, and she did absolutely fine, which means I can kick her butt in the gym today. Look out. She likes that, though. Now, some final closing tips as I share in my the written form of my blog at paulcheksblog.com. If you have a hard time on that test, there's a number of factors you can look at. One, the more complex exercises you're doing that day, the less you want to do. So the harder you do on the test, if you've got 5 exercises that you're supposed to do, reduce the number of those exercises as low as 1 or 2, depending on how well you do on the test. If you fall off a lot, keep it low. It's better to be safe than sorry. You can always come back and do more. This is where we apply the less is more principle. So reducing the number of complex exercises is very, very important. 2, the rest periods between the exercises can be lengthened, excuse me. So if you're doing 4 or 5 exercises and you don't do well on that test, you can not only reduce the exercises, but you can increase the length of the rest period to give your nervous system more time to recover. As a general rule of thumb, the nervous system takes 5 to 6 times longer to recover from an intense exercise than the muscular system does. So we need more nervous system rest. So we can reduce the complexity, we can reduce the number of exercise. So first I said reduce the number of exercise, you can reduce the complexity of an exercise. So if you're doing an exercise that has a minimal base of support, so say you're trying to do a single arm snatch with a kettlebell, go to 2-legged action and that will increase the base of support. So to decrease the demand on the nervous system, you can increase the base of support. So for example, if you were working with a, say, fairly sedentary client that was having a very hard time squatting in general, and you found that they didn't do well on the test, if they could do it, never do the test on someone who is not athletic enough to even do the test, obviously. But if they were having a hard time squatting, you could then reduce the intensity of the exercise or add base of support by having them hold on to a dowel rod or 2 dowel rods, which still activates their postural system because the dowel rods move. So by increasing the base of support, you decrease the demand on the nervous system. So to start from the top, you can reduce the number of complex exercises. You can reduce the complexity of the exercise by reducing base of support or just changing the exercise. And you can increase the length of the rest period between exercises to give the nervous system more time to recover, or you can take the day off. That's another option. So those are my tips today. You can go ahead and visit my blog if you want to read more. And while I've got your attention, if you go to my friend's website, pureathlete.com, my student Greg Muller, who's a fantastic Chek practitioner, level 4, famous strength coach. He's trained the All Blacks and many of the most famous rugby teams in the world. He has developed his own line of athlete recovery products, which are absolutely excellent, from bath salts to massage oils and soaps, and all sorts of things that I found extremely useful for my own training, and am sharing them now with my athletes. So feel free to look into Pure Athlete, pureathlete.com. There's some love for you, Greg. Thanks for joining me today, you guys. Talk to you with my next blog real soon.